Compound interest is not hard because the formula is complicated. It is hard because the first numbers insult your ego. You put in $1,000, wait 5 years, and at 7% it becomes about $1,403. Most men see that and quit mentally. They say, that is nothing. But they are not looking at money. They are looking at the first psychological test of wealth. The machine rewards the man who can stay disciplined while the results still look weak. At 10 years, the curve starts speaking. At 20 years, interruption becomes expensive. At 30 years, the patient man and the impulsive man no longer live in the same financial reality. The trap is thinking income alone will save you. The opposite trap is worshipping numbers without adding capital. The real power is calculation, contribution, and patience. Now watch what $1,000 actually becomes. These are not motivational numbers. They are mechanical numbers. The same law that turns $1,000 into $1,403 after 5 years can also turn repeated contribution into serious optionality over decades. The formula is not the enemy. The enemy is the man who quits because the early proof is too small to flatter him. A man who does not understand the numbers is easy to control, not because he lacks ambition, because he cannot see the future cost of his present weakness. He spends because the sacrifice looks small. He delays because 1 year looks harmless. He withdraws because the balance still looks unimpressive. He says, I will start when I earn more, because he does not understand that income without structure is just another month of survival wearing better clothes. Here is the hidden mechanism. Compound interest does not reward intelligence first. It rewards continuity. And that is why so many ambitious men fail with money. They are not stupid. They are impatient. They want visible status before invisible structure. They want the outcome before the curve has had time to build force. They want to look like the man who won before they have built the system that wins. Machiavelli wrote that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. In modern life, that means people respect what they can see. Cars, clothes, status, titles, visible proof. The world applauds the surface because the surface is easy to judge. But compound interest begins where nobody claps, in the invisible, in the quiet account nobody sees, in the money you did not spend, in the impulse you did not obey, in the month you repeated when nothing exciting happened, in the dull decision to keep feeding a machine that still looks too small to impress anyone. And the man who cannot endure invisibility will keep sacrificing his future for a temporary signal. So the question is simple. Can you remain disciplined while the numbers still look weak? If you cannot answer that question, you lose more than money. You lose time. You lose optionality. You lose negotiating power. You lose the ability to leave rooms that disrespect you. You lose the ability to take calculated risks. You lose the ability to say no without fear. A man with no financial margin is easier to pressure. He may speak about freedom, ambition, and self-respect, but when rent is due, debt is growing, and savings are thin, his philosophy becomes fragile. He does not negotiate from power. He negotiates from panic. He cannot walk away because his numbers do not allow him to walk away. This is not moral judgment. This is power analysis. Money is not everything. But money is one of the cleanest forms of stored choice. A dollar that is kept, protected, invested, and multiplied becomes more than a dollar. It becomes distance from desperation. It becomes oxygen under pressure. It becomes the ability to pause before reacting. It becomes the ability to refuse a bad deal without begging for a better one. And compound interest is one way choice begins to multiply. Now we start with the number most men dismiss, Number 1, the starting point, $1,000. $1,000 is not impressive. That is exactly why it is useful. If I start this lesson with $100,000, most men will hide behind the excuse that wealth is only for men who already have wealth. They will say the lesson does not apply to them. They will say the game is rigged. They will say they would invest if they had real money. They will protect their ego by pretending the starting point is the problem, so we start smaller. $1,000. Not enough to impress anyone. Not enough to change your status. Not enough to make your family believe in you. Not enough to make your friends respect your ambition. Not enough to make a woman see you differently. Not enough to turn you into the man you imagine, but enough to begin the machine. This is the first lesson. Compounding begins with retained capital, not ego. The unsupported man must understand this. You may not have a rich family. You may not have a mentor. You may not have people opening doors for you. You may not have a safety net waiting under your mistakes. But if you can retain capital, protect it, and add to it, you have started building something no one else owns. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler should rely on himself, not on the will of others. That applies here. Do not rely on someone rescuing your future. Do not rely on family finally understanding. Do not rely on friends becoming more serious. Do not rely on society noticing your hidden potential. Hidden potential does not pay rent. Hidden potential does not create leverage. Hidden potential does not compound unless it is converted into behavior. Build a system that does not need their belief. That is the first coal shift. You stop asking whether $1,000 is impressive. You start asking whether $1,000 can become the first proof that you are no longer careless with your future. But $1,000 alone does nothing unless it is placed inside a growth structure. So now we attach time and rate. Number 2, the growth rate, 7% or 10%. We will use 7% and 10% as teaching examples. Not promises, not guarantees, not fantasy. Just simple numbers to reveal the mechanism. At 7%, $1,000 grows more slowly. At 10%, $1,000 grows faster. The difference may look small in year 1. That is exactly why careless men ignore it. They hear 7% and 10% and treat the difference like trivia. They think 3% is not a big deal. But compounding turns small differences into brutal consequences when enough time is attached. This is why men who do not calculate stay blind. A small fee repeated long enough is not small. A bad debt repeated long enough is not small. A monthly waste repeated long enough is not small. A 1-year delay repeated through excuses is not small. Anything repeated long enough stops being small. This is the part most men never want to face. The future is not usually destroyed by one dramatic mistake. It is often destroyed by quiet repetition, a little spending, a little avoidance, a little delay, a little restart, a little emotional weakness disguised as relief. The law does not care about your feelings. It only multiplies the structure you gave it. If your money grows at a positive rate, time may become your ally. If your debt grows at a high rate, time becomes your enemy. If your habits are disciplined, time reveals them. If your habits are weak, time exposes them. The machine does not judge. It compounds. Now look at year 5. This is where most men fail the test. Number 3, year 5, the ego is not impressed. At 7%, $1,000 becomes about $1,403 after 5 years. 5 years. Only $403 of growth. Most men see that and say, that is nothing. But what are they really saying? They are saying, I cannot respect a process unless it flatters me early. That is why they stay average. 5 years is not where compound interest makes you rich. 5 years is where compound interest tests whether you are serious. This is the stage where insecure men interrupt the machine. They withdraw. They stop contributing. They chase something louder. They buy status. They try to look successful before they have built the system that creates success. This is why the first numbers insult your ego, because they reveal whether you are building for freedom or performing for attention. A weak man wants visible proof before he gives discipline. A serious man gives discipline before visible proof. That is the separation. Not talent, not intelligence, not even income at first. The separation begins with the man who can stay loyal to a process while the process still looks small. Warren Buffett understood this earlier than most men. He bought his first stock at age 11. Not because he was already powerful, not because the world had crowned him. He was a boy learning the language of capital while other people were still thinking in the language of consumption. The pressure was simple. He had to endure a slow game in a culture that loves fast, visible wins. The action was simple. He studied businesses, reinvested, and let time stretch his decisions. The first proof was not fame. It was not a headline. It was not an empire. It was real ownership, real numbers, and real patience. The power lesson is colder than most people want to admit. The curve does not reward the man who wants to look rich. It rewards the man who can stay rational while the result looks too small to worship. Berkshire Hathaway's long-term record later became the visible proof. But the first proof was not fame. It was behavior. That is the part men miss. Proof begins before anyone sees it. If you only respect the result after the world respects it, you are not strategic. You are a follower of applause. You wait for society to confirm what was already being built in silence. But the man who wins early in the invisible becomes difficult to compete with later in the visible. This is also where you must tell yourself the truth. If you cannot stay disciplined with a small account, more income will not save you. It will only give your impulses a larger weapon. A man who cannot govern $1,000 will often mismanage $10,000. A man who cannot repeat with $100 will often sabotage $1,000. The amount changes, but the pattern remains. If this cuts deeper than you expected, that is the point. The real problem is not that you lack information. The real problem is that you may still be waiting for your discipline to feel impressive before you respect it. That is why I created a private system on Patreon for men who want deeper frameworks on money, proof, positioning, discipline, leverage, and self-command. It is not for spectators, and it is not for men collecting motivation they will never convert. It is for the man who understands that his future will be decided by the systems he builds when nobody is praising him. The decision is yours, but year 5 is not the truth. It is only the doorway. At year 10, the curve starts speaking louder. Number 4, year 10, the curve starts speaking. At 7%, $1,000 becomes about $1,967 after 10 years. At 10%, it becomes about $2,594. Now something changes. The money has almost doubled at 7%. It has more than doubled at 10%. Still, this is not enough to make the impatient man feel powerful. That is the danger. The impatient man says, 10 years for that? The disciplined man says, now I understand the machine. Because the disciplined man sees what is invisible to the impulsive man. He sees that the machine is becoming self-feeding. He sees that time is doing work. He sees that the original $1,000 is no longer alone. The gains are beginning to create their own gains. This is the first real psychological shift. You stop seeing money as something that only comes from labor. You start seeing money as something that can become labor, silent labor, stored labor, obedient labor, labor that works without complaining, without needing validation, without asking whether anyone believes in you. That is why the 10-year number matters. It is not meant to impress you. It is meant to educate your patience. It shows you that money can begin to work beside you, but only after you stop treating every delay as disrespect. The man who needs instant proof will never command long-term power. But if 10 years educates you, 20 years exposes you. Because at 20 years, interruption becomes expensive. Number 5, year 20. The machine becomes visible. At 7%, $1,000 becomes about $3,870 after 20 years. At 10%, it becomes about $6,728. Now the machine is visible. Not because the amount is enormous, not because $1,000 has magically solved your life, not because you can retire from one decision made years ago. The machine becomes visible because the difference between patience and impatience is becoming undeniable. The same $1,000, the same starting point. Different rate, different time, different outcome. This is where men begin to understand that compounding is not linear. A linear mind expects the same amount of growth each period. It expects life to move in straight lines. It expects 1 year of effort to create 1 year of results, then another year to create the same amount again. But an exponential system does not behave that way. It builds pressure slowly, then visibly, then brutally. That is why your instincts lie to you. Research on exponential growth bias shows people tend to underestimate future value when growth compounds. In plain language, your mind is not naturally built to feel the true size of future compounding. You look at the early number and think the future will remain weak. You look at the first 5 years and assume the next 25 years will behave the same way. But that is not how the machine works. The early years are not impressive because the system is weak. They are not impressive because the system is still gathering force. The gains are small because the base is small. The base is small because you have not given the machine enough capital, enough time, or enough continuity. That is why calculation matters. Your feelings are not built to understand exponential growth. Your calculator is. And this is where most men stay financially blind. They do not calculate the future. They feel the present. They look at the current balance, feel disappointed, and destroy the process before the process has had time to reveal itself. They treat emotional impatience as financial intelligence. They say, "This is not working." But the truth is colder. The machine may be working. You simply stop watching it long enough to understand it. Now look at Jeff Bezos and Amazon. In 1997, Amazon was still young, attacked by competitors, pressured by Wall Street, and judged by people who wanted immediate proof. Most people wanted clearer profits, safer signals, and faster validation. They wanted the business to behave like a normal business before the infrastructure had finished compounding. Bezos did something most men claim they understand but rarely practice. He chose long-term compounding over short-term approval. The pressure was real. Investors wanted clearer immediate profits and safer signals. The action was deliberate. Amazon reinvested into customers, infrastructure, selection, and market leadership. The first proof was not fantasy. By the end of 1997, Amazon had served over 1.5 million customers and reached $147.8 million in revenue. The power lesson is simple. Compounding is not only money in an account, it is repeated reinvestment into a system that gets stronger with time. A business compounds through customers, trust, logistics, data, and distribution. A man compounds through savings, skill, reputation, health, and self-command. But the principle is identical. Whatever you repeatedly feed becomes stronger. Whatever you repeatedly neglect becomes dangerous. If you repeatedly feed spending, spending grows stronger. If you repeatedly feed avoidance, avoidance grows stronger. If you repeatedly feed debt, debt becomes a second master. If you repeatedly feed discipline, discipline becomes less dramatic and more automatic. This is the hidden brutality of repetition. It does not ask whether the pattern is good for you. It only strengthens what you keep practicing. At 20 years, interruption becomes expensive because the machine is no longer just holding your original money. It is holding years of accumulated force. When you interrupt early, you are not only touching the present, you are damaging a future structure that has not fully appeared yet. That is why small weakness becomes dangerous when repeated across time. A man skips one contribution and thinks nothing happened. A man withdraws a small amount and thinks nothing happened. A man delays one more year and thinks nothing happened. But something happened. He weakened the structure. He trained interruption. He normalized the habit of breaking the machine whenever emotion demanded relief. Most compound interest calculators show you a dream number. That is not enough. Use the free calculator in the description because it shows reality. Your contributions, growth, inflation, taxes, fees, and the cost of waiting. Run your actual numbers and look at what delay could remove from your future. Now we reach year 30. This is where the patient man and the impulsive man stop living in the same reality. Number 6, year 30. The law exposes the patient and the impulsive. At 7%, $1,000 becomes about $7,612 after 30 years. At 10%, it becomes about $17,449. Same starting amount. Different curve. Different reality. This is where the lesson becomes uncomfortable. The impatient man can laugh at year 5. He can mock year 10. He can still pretend year 20 is not dramatic enough. But at year 30, the pattern begins to expose him. Not because $1,000 became enough to dominate life, because the gap reveals what time does to repeated decisions. The man at 7% and the man at 10% did not begin in different worlds. They began with the same $1,000. The difference came from rate, time, and continuity. That is the whole game compressed into one small example. But now imagine the difference if the man did not only invest once. Imagine he also contributed every month. This is where the game changes. One-time capital shows the mechanism. Repeated contribution feeds the machine. Start with $1,000. Add only $100 a month. At 7%, after 5 years, the machine becomes about $8,577. After 10 years, it becomes about $19,318. After 20 years, it becomes about $56,131. After 30 years, it becomes about $130,114. Now the lesson is impossible to dismiss. The original $1,000 was never the whole story. It was the seed. The monthly contribution was the fuel. The time was the pressure. The rate was the multiplier. The discipline was the gatekeeper. Most men ask the wrong question. They ask, is $1,000 impressive? No, that is a weak question. The serious question is, what happens when I stop interrupting the machine and keep feeding it for decades? The trap is thinking, I do not have enough money to start. The colder truth is this, you may not have enough discipline to repeat. That is the wound. Most men do not lack dreams. They lack continuity. They can get intense for a week. They can save for a month. They can start with emotion. But then life hits. A bill appears. A woman distracts them. A friend invites them out. A bad mood becomes an excuse. A new purchase promises identity. A stressful week becomes permission to abandon the plan, and the machine gets interrupted. Machiavelli wrote that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. That is what financial discipline is. A new order, a new law inside your life. The old version of you will resist it. The old appetites will resist it. The old environment may mock it. The old friends may not understand why you suddenly calculate what they casually waste. Your family may still judge you through the old image they have of you. Your own mind may try to bargain with you, telling you that one interruption does not matter. But if the old order keeps winning, your future stays owned by your impulses. This is why interrupting the machine is so expensive. When you withdraw early, you do not only lose the dollars you removed, you lose the future growth those dollars could have produced. When you stop contributing, you do not only miss 1 month, you weaken the habit that makes future months automatic. When you keep restarting, you do not simply pause. You return yourself to the weakest part of the curve, and the weakest part of the curve is where most men spend their entire lives. Starting, stopping, restarting, explaining, regretting, promising. That is not ambition. That is instability with motivational language. The brutal part is that no one may notice while it is happening. There is no dramatic collapse. There is no announcement. There is no enemy standing in front of you. The loss hides inside time. It hides inside the future you never built. It hides inside the freedom you never had because you kept trading it for emotional relief. This is where a man has to stop lying to himself. If your future depends on your mood, your future is not protected. If your savings depend on excitement, your savings are not a system. If your investing depends on whether people believe in you, you are still emotionally owned. If your discipline collapses every time life becomes uncomfortable, the machine will never get enough continuity to defend you. The deeper private work is not learning more quotes. It is building the structure that makes your behavior harder to corrupt. That is why the private system on Patreon goes deeper into frameworks for discipline, proof, positioning, funnels, leverage, money, and self-command. It is not for men who want to be entertained by harsh truths while repeating the same soft patterns. It is for men who are ready to replace vague ambition with evidence, structure, and measurable force. The decision is yours. Number 7, the real question. Do not ask, is this amount impressive? Ask, what happens if I add every month? Ask, what happens if I protect the system for 10 years? Ask, what happens if I stop using emergencies, insecurity, boredom, and status, hunger as reasons to destroy my own future? This is where you become dangerous to your old life, because numbers remove fog. A vague man says, I want to be free. A serious man says, this is my monthly contribution. This is my timeline. This is my risk. This is my projected range. This is the debt I must kill. This is the habit I must stop feeding. The vague man hopes. The serious man calculates. The vague man waits for permission. The serious man builds evidence. The vague man wants people to believe in him. The serious man creates numbers that no longer require belief. This is the identity shift. You are not a man waiting for support. You are a man building a machine. and the machine does not need applause, it needs fuel. This is the point where compound interest stops being a finance topic and becomes a test of self-command. Because the same man who cannot leave money alone often cannot leave his emotions alone. He reacts, he spends, he explains, he seeks approval, he chases status signals before he has built the foundation that can support them. He wants the world to see him as powerful before his behavior has become powerful. That is backwards. Power is not the signal. Power is the structure underneath the signal. When the structure is weak, the signal becomes performance. The car is performance. The watch is performance. The expensive night out is performance. The social media image is performance. The appearance of motion becomes a substitute for actual progress. But compounding humiliates performance because it rewards what survives repetition. You cannot fake 30 years of continuity. You cannot fake money that stayed in the machine. You cannot fake the difference between one contribution and a system. You cannot fake the curve. That is why this lesson matters. So how does compound interest work? It works by letting money earn money, then letting the earned money earn more. But psychologically, it works by testing whether you can stay loyal to a system before the system flatters you. At 5 years, your ego is tested. At 10 years, your patience is educated. At 20 years, interruption becomes expensive. At 30 years, the patient man and the impulsive man separate. The early numbers look weak because compounding tests discipline before it rewards visibility. That is the core lesson, not motivation. Mechanism. Now open a calculator. Run your own 5-year number, your 10-year number, your 20-year number, your 30-year number. Use your actual monthly contribution, not the fantasy number you tell people, the real number. Then look at the number again and ask yourself what kind of man your current pattern is building. Not what kind of man you claim to be. Not what kind of man you would be if life became easier. What kind of man your repeated financial behavior is proving right now. Because a man who refuses to calculate is choosing blindness. And blindness is expensive. Do not stay theoretical. The curve does not care who doubted you. It does not care who failed to support you. It does not care who ignored you. It does not care how long you have felt behind. It only cares whether you stayed in the game. And if you want freedom later, you must stop sacrificing the machine now.